My brother, Ryan, invited us to live with him and promised we wouldn't need to worry about rent or utilities. I'm Lisa, and I work in finance. My husband, Adam, is a car mechanic. We live in the house where I grew up. By childhood home, I don't mean my parents still live there. It's actually the home that's tied to our family's business, where my dad used to be the CEO. My brother Ryan was originally supposed to take over the company. He studied economics in college and even went abroad to Oxford University to learn more about business management. After returning to the US, he worked alongside my dad for years. Eventually, my parents decided to retire and move to a peaceful place like Aspen, Colorado, to enjoy a relaxed life surrounded by nature. Since Ryan took over the company, my parents gave the family home to me as their daughter. I decided to live there with Adam. The house is in a great location. It's less than a 5-minute walk to the train station, and schools, hospitals, and shopping centers are all nearby. It's also a good place to settle down for the long term, even when our kids grow up and move out. For that, I'm truly grateful to my parents for giving me this home. Adam and I were excited to grow our family and live happily here. But life took a sudden, unexpected turn because of something we never saw coming. After we moved in, Adam's mom started visiting a lot. She knew my parents had run a business, so she kept asking about money. Since we got married, she often said things like, "Lisa, how much money do your parents have? When they pass away, what will you inherit?" She brought this up so many times that I found it uncomfortable. I didn't want to be rude, so I always answered lightly, "I'm not really sure. I've never thought about it much. I already got the house, so I probably won't get any money." I'd laugh and try to change the topic, but she'd keep going, "That can't be true. Your parents are in their 60s. They must have talked to you about their assets." It was clear she was very interested in my parents' wealth, and I started feeling like she was counting on it. I already knew how much I would inherit, but I decided to keep it to myself. I didn't want to share this with Adam or his mom. But then something shocking happened. One morning, out of nowhere, Adam's mom and his brother's family moved into our house. Around 8 a.m. on a holiday, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I was surprised to see movers standing there. "Wait, why are the movers here?" I stood there, shocked and confused, when my mother-in-law and her family arrived and said, "We're going to be living here starting today, so please take care of us." Seeing their smiling faces made my skin crawl. Just then, Adam woke up. When I asked him to explain, he casually said, "What's the problem with Mom and the others moving in? The house is big, so there's plenty of room for everyone." He acted like it was perfectly normal to have them stay. I was already in shock that they were moving in, but then my sister-in-law made an even more outrageous comment. "We were invited by your brother, Ryan. He said we don't have to pay rent or utilities, so we're counting on you, Lisa." My brother-in-law started going into rooms without asking, saying, "This room gets a lot of sunlight, so we'll take it. Adam, move all the stuff out of here and into the hallway." I couldn't believe what was happening. This was my house, but they were treating it like it was theirs, picking rooms to claim as their own. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law had always shown poor manners, especially my sister-in-law, who once went through my purse without permission. If this kept up, they would take over every room. "That's enough. This is my house. Why are you acting like you own it? I'm done. I want everyone out of here." I don't usually get angry or raise my voice, but having them move into the house my parents gave me and act like they were in charge was too much. That's why I lost control and shouted at all three of them. But then something unexpected happened. "How dare you talk to us like that? You're the one who should leave." As soon as those words were spoken, I felt a sharp pain in my cheek. Wait, did I just get slapped? It took me a few seconds to realize what had happened. I was stunned, still processing the shock, and the only thing I could feel was the throbbing pain on my cheek. At that moment, something inside me snapped. I knew I couldn't live with people who would do something like this. This house is mine, and I wasn't going to let them treat it like a free place to stay. I packed up my things and decided to leave the house. I needed to talk to my family about everything, but I also needed to find a place to stay. So, I rented a short-term apartment for now, where I would also have to commute to work. When I called my parents to tell them what happened, I could hear how angry they were, especially my dad. Even though he was a strict CEO, he had always been a loving and supportive father to me and Ryan. I didn't want to bother them with this, especially since they were just about to retire, but I had no choice. My house was being taken over. While I stayed in the apartment, I was sure that Adam and his family were still using my house. That's when I decided to do what Ryan and my dad suggested. A few days later, during my break, I checked my phone and saw dozens of missed calls and messages from Adam. I knew exactly why he was calling. I had contacted the water and electricity companies to cut off the services. Since the house is all electric and doesn't have solar panels yet, there was no way to get power. With it being so hot, I figured Adam's family would be struggling without electricity or water. As I was about to ignore his calls, Adam called again, right when my break started. "Hey, what's going on? There's no electricity, and the water's off. You cut them off, didn't you?" I could hear the panic in his voice. "The house is mine, so now that I'm not there, I can't keep paying for the utilities," I explained. "I had them cut off because I didn't want to pay for something I'm not using." Of course, Adam was furious and demanded that I turn everything back on immediately. But just because he said so didn't mean I would do it. He wanted me to pay, but that's not how it works. If they wanted the utilities back, they could pay for it themselves. It wasn't my responsibility anymore. "I'm not renewing the contract," I told him. "If you don't like it, then leave the house." I hung up because my break was ending. Then, my mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and brother-in-law all started calling me. They were all saying the same thing. They wanted me to turn the electricity and water back on. They said it was uncomfortable and inconvenient without them, but that wasn't my problem. After listening to their complaints, I told them to deal with it themselves and hung up. I thought they'd get tired of it and leave soon. But even after a week, they were still there. So, I decided to take it further. I spoke with my father's company lawyer and asked him to send a notice to Adam. The notice explained that they were trespassing. They had entered my house without permission, forced me out, and were treating it like their own. I made it clear that I was considering taking legal action if they didn't leave. "Hey, what's going on? Why did I get a lawyer's letter? Was it really necessary to take it this far?" Adam, looking panicked and not expecting me to go to these lengths, came to me hoping for a settlement. I knew how much they cared about their image, and being sued would really hurt them mentally. They definitely wanted to avoid dealing with a lawyer but didn't want to give up the life they had. I could see right through Adam's plan to try to convince me to let them keep living this way. But there was no way I was going to listen to him, so I didn't give in. That's when Adam completely lost his temper. Forgetting he was at work, he yelled at me loudly. "Cut it out. Are you getting carried away? Just because we did something a little shady doesn't mean you can act so high and mighty. Go back to how things were and drop the lawyer." Even though he yelled, it didn't affect me. In fact, I was annoyed thinking, who does he think he is, taking over someone else's house? "No matter what you shout, I'm not changing my mind. If you keep staying there, I'll take legal action. You'd better think carefully before you keep acting this way." Adam was still shouting over the phone, but I ignored him and hung up. It was a waste of time, and I had already spoken to my lawyer about divorce. When I got home, I had missed calls from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, but I knew they were just trying to settle things. I didn't want to waste any more time, so I blocked their numbers. After that, Adam's family couldn't handle the thought of being sued, so they packed up and left. Then, the lawyer got involved, and the divorce process went smoothly. I had a cleaning service come in, and soon, my house was sparkling clean again. Living away from Adam's family in a rental was fine, but being back in my own house felt the best. The house was a little worn down in some places, so I started thinking about renovations. I asked my dad for advice, and he introduced me to a good contractor, so I started planning the renovations. Living alone is so peaceful. I'm not tied down by anyone. I can relax on the sofa without being told what to do. I can eat whatever I want without anyone complaining. While enjoying my new life, I got a call from Adam for the first time in 3 months. At first, I didn't answer the phone since I didn't recognize the number, but when it kept ringing from the same number, I thought it might be a call from the contractor, so I reluctantly answered. But as soon as I heard the voice, my mood completely soured. It was Adam, my ex-husband, who I divorced 3 months ago. We had already divorced with the help of a lawyer and promised never to contact each other again. So, why was he calling now? Changing his phone number just to reach me was strange. We agreed through our lawyer not to contact each other. There's nothing more to discuss, so please don't call me again. Just as I was about to hang up, Adam pleaded, "Hold on, please, just listen to me for a minute, I'm begging you." He started talking without giving me a chance to say anything. Apparently, his company was in a serious financial crisis, and his salary had been cut. My mother-in-law's health was bad, and she couldn't work. My sister-in-law and her husband couldn't help with living expenses since he didn't have a stable job. My sister-in-law worked multiple part-time jobs, but most of her pay went toward paying off my brother-in-law's debts. The situation was really bad. Adam was struggling to make ends meet, but with his salary being cut, things were going to get even harder. Honestly, all I could think to say was, "Okay, I see." They had invaded my house without permission, done whatever they wanted, and tried to kick me out. I couldn't feel any sympathy for them. It was hard to even care. "That's your family's problem, not mine," I said. "You'll have to figure it out on your own." Adam started to panic even more. "Don't say that. We're in real trouble. We won't even be able to pay rent soon. And we won't have enough food. We were a family, right? Please, help us, he begged, his voice shaking. But I wasn't moved. When I was struggling, Adam did nothing to help me. He and my mother-in-law always looked down on me. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law insulted me for being plain and old-fashioned. They even told me not to come around because they said I was too stiff and outdated, and it was rubbing off on them. They didn't care how hurt I was. My mother-in-law made things worse by pressuring me to have a baby right away. She forced me to take strange herbal medicines, made unnecessary doctor's appointments for me, and even told everyone I was infertile. Looking back, there was nothing good about my marriage. Adam, who used to be kind, became my mother-in-law's puppet after we got married. I remember the first day my mother-in-law stormed into our house. I was out for an appointment. Apparently, she was upset and cried to Adam, saying, "I wanted to see Lisa, but she wasn't home. I want to be friends with her. I'm so sad." After hearing his mother cry, Adam yelled at me without hearing my side. She claimed she wanted to get along with me, but all she did whenever we met was criticize me. "My son has lost weight. Is it because your cooking is so bad he can't eat properly?" she would say loudly, whether we were at home or out. It made it impossible for us to get along. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law would join in, laughing at me. I couldn't help people who acted like this anymore. "No matter what you say, my feelings won't change. I can't help you guys, so I'm hanging up now, and don't ever contact me again," I said. With that, I hung up and blocked the new number. Knowing Adam, I figured he might change his number and try to contact me again, so I decided to go to the store and change my phone number over the weekend. But before I could, those four took action. They broke their promise from the lawyer and showed up at my house at 11 p.m. "Open up, let us in, we're family, you should help us," they yelled, banging on the door. "Hey, what's going on at this hour? Please go home, you're disturbing the neighbors," I said. When I opened the door, it looked like they were ready to barge in. I decided to talk to them through the intercom, but they didn't care. They just kept banging on the door and causing a scene. I couldn't believe how out of control they were being. I was about to call the police when I heard sirens from outside. It seemed like one of the neighbors had already called them. When they heard the sirens, the four of them panicked, thinking I had called the cops, and tried to run, but by then, a crowd had gathered, and there was no way to escape. The police officers took them all to the station. I was questioned about what happened and explained everything. Afterward, word spread quickly in the neighborhood about what my ex-husband and his family had done. It turned out that one of the people in the crowd was a co-worker of Adam's, so, by the next day, everyone in his office knew what had happened. He was already struggling because of his pay cut, but after the police were involved, his company couldn't overlook it. Adam got fired and could no longer afford his apartment rent. Money problems caused a big rift between him and his sister's family, so their shared living situation ended. Now Adam is living in public housing with his mother and working multiple part-time jobs to get by. Even his mother started working part-time a few days a week, desperate to earn some money.